Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this important video. My name is Aaron Wadka. I'm one of the Associate State Directors of Advocacy and Community Outreach for AARP Arizona. We are excited to have you here and learning more about Arizona's elections and using us as a trusted source of information. And we are very excited to welcome the Arizona Secretary of State, Adrian, for a quick dialogue on facts and important information so that you can exercise your right to vote in Arizona. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we're going to jump right into it and would love if you could share a few words about what is the presidential preference election and when is it?
So Arizona calls its primary for the office of president the Arizona Presidential Preference Election. It is an election where eligible party members can vote, and only those party members can vote. So it falls on March 19th this year, and only registered Democrats and registered Republicans are eligible to vote in that election. And it sets up who gets that particular candidate's delegates to the particular political conventions in the summer.
And what day are we looking at that? That's in March, I believe, right?
Yes, March 19th is the date for Arizona's presidential preference election. And if you are not a registered Democrat or Republican, you can change your voter registration to be a member of one of those parties by February 20th so that you can participate. You can also change it back later if you don't want to stay a member of that party. Any Arizona voter can change their party registration, but unless you are registered as a Republican or a Democrat, you are not eligible to vote in Arizona's presidential preference election.
Great. So how can someone check their voter registration status? They might be listening to you thinking, oh man, I don't even know if I'm registered as a Democrat or Republican. What should they do?
Well, there's a variety of places where you can get that accurate information. The number one place you can go is to your local county recorder's office. In Maricopa County, it's maricopa.vote or beballotready.vote. In several other counties, they have their own websites, or you can go to arizona.vote to find more information about whether or not you are registered with one of those two parties that is on the ballot for the March 19th presidential preference election, or PPE. I'll be calling it PPE for the rest of the interview.
Great. So if you're an independent, we just established, right, you can participate, but you have to switch over to a Democratic or Republican party, right?
Well, that is true. Independents or no party designated voters, as we call them officially in Arizona, can vote, but only if they switch their actual registration in their party. Now, that's different from the August primary, so it can be a little confusing. But for the March 19th presidential preference election, you must be registered by February 20th with either of the two eligible parties, the Republican or Democratic Party. And if you want to switch back later, you can do that too.
Great. So if someone needs to update their voter registration, are there a couple different ways to do it?
There are several ways to update your voter registration. One of the quickest and easiest is to go to arizona.vote. That website will give you all of the information that you need. Again, other counties have their own websites. You can check with your county recorder. In fact, your elected county recorder is the registrar of voters in Arizona. So we've got 15 counties, 15 county recorders. You can check with them, or again, arizona.vote.
And is there a certain day they need to register to vote by if they want to participate in the PPE?
Yes. Not only do you need to switch your party affiliation to Republican or Democrat by February 20th, but if you are not registered to vote, you have to register by February 20th. That's the registration date for the March 19th presidential preference election. In Arizona, the registration deadline is 29 days before the election day.
Got it. So if someone votes in person, or if I vote in person, how do I need to show ID to vote?
Well, there are several forms of identification that are available for voters to use. Again, you can still go to arizona.vote to find the list there. But basically, you can use an Arizona driver's license. You can use a tribal identification. There are some other forms of ID. You can find that list on arizona.vote. And remember, if you're voting in person, you have to show ID to vote, or you will end up having to bring back your ID to a registrar's office within the next day or two after that. You can still cast your ballot, but you certainly should be prepared and make a plan so that you've got that with you when you go to vote.
And so after I cast a ballot, how do I track it?
So ballot tracking is in existence for Maricopa County voters and Pima County voters for early voting. But if you vote on election day, you are voting with an in-person tabulator, and that ballot will go right into the tabulator. Now, there's one little difference there. If you bring your early ballot into the polling place on election day, you can still use the ballot tracking technology that's available right now in Maricopa and Pima County, but that won't really show up until the next day or two or three, because they've got a lot of ballots early ballots that show up late on election day. So if you get your ballot in the mail, my recommendation is vote that ballot and mail it back within the next 72 hours, just so that you guarantee to get it in to the election office. And the ballot tracking systems are pretty good in those two counties. We'll try to introduce more statewide soon.
So what happens if I get my ballot and it's damaged, or I damaged it by accident? How do I go about getting a replacement?
Well, there are several options for replacing a damaged ballot, whether it arrives damaged or whether you, unfortunately, spill some coffee on it or the dog gets to it. You can go to a ballot replacement center. Again, contact your voter registrar, or on election day, you can go vote in person. You can also contact your county election office, and they can send you a replacement ballot in the mail up to a certain date before election day. Each county has that information on their website, and you can usually find that information on arizona.vote. So just because your ballot is damaged, it doesn't mean you can't vote. It just means we need to get a good solid ballot in for you, so that we can count your intent.
Awesome, thank you. And can you talk a little bit and reassure Arizonans about how secure our voting system is?
Absolutely. We've taken great pains over the last many, many years to make sure that our election systems are secure. For example, no tabulator of ballots in Arizona is connected to the internet. They never have been, and they never will be. Every ballot in Arizona is cast on paper. It has been cast on paper and for a very long time. You sometimes hear about voting machines. We don't have voting machines in Arizona. We only have paper ballots, and that's been true for a long time. Just those two things should reassure voters that our systems are secure. But we have also worked with state, local, and federal law enforcement officials to make sure that our people are secure as well, and our facilities. And so there's a whole list of things that we've done over the last several years, and we will continue to do, to be vigilant, to make sure that our voters are safe and the folks who run our elections are safe as well.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for taking the time to reassure Arizonans and our ARP Arizona members on how to vote in the presidential preference election and the strength of Arizona's voting system.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'll be happy to come back whenever you'd like.
Thanks.
Thank you.